Okay, now I can hear myself. Now I think we're good. Cause I wasn't hearing. Okay, now I think we're good. Third time. Welcome everyone to another edition of the Fall River Insider. Now you can finally hear what I'm saying. Welcome back to another edition. I'm your host Collin Dias. Thank you for my co-host Jeff. Co-host Boomer. And we have a special guest on today, Sara Rodrigues, member of the school committee.
How come they get to be co-hosts?
They've been on all the. Oh, you guys. I know you've been. You can't. Okay, you can't. You're my
I guess
Coco.
Special co-host, right? Like
yes. Special edition. You come on once in a while. No, beautiful day. I just want to start. It was a very beautiful day. I didn't even know it was a little bit rainy, but it was warm. It's April weather.
We'll take it.
Anyone play any April Fool's jokes today? No.
Nah.
I do. I'm a trickster. But
Is it? A little overrated. Sorry, Mom.
No, it's okay. That's just me. So we have Sara on today, and I mean, we all know a lot of discussion lately in Fall River has been around the schools lately, and mainly bullying in our schools. And I brought Sara on because we wanted to discuss solutions to some of these issues and maybe clear up some of the questions the public may have.
Sure, to the best of my ability.
No, of course. That's all we can ever ask for. No, honestly, that's all we can ever ask for. It's the best of our ability. And of course, we can't really get into specifics about children's like personnel issues and especially student staff issues. I understand, and I think that's the first question I'm going to ask Sara. And like I understand.
Can I do a little PSA first?
Sure.
Okay, so today marks the beginning of Autism Acceptance Month. And I would not be doing.
Hold the mic in, Sara.
Oh, I would not
you
be
can
doing.
aim it to you.
Oh,
there you go.
Pull
it in.
Pull it in.
You can bend it.
Okay, here we go. So I would not be doing my due diligence if I didn't acknowledge that today marks the beginning of Autism Acceptance Month. So a lot of our schools had done some Light It Up Blue campaigns, and we talk a lot about how we shouldn't light it up blue because the autistic community has asked us not to do that. So it's my little public service announcement that we go red instead, or we light it up gold. Because the autistic community has asked for that, because blue is representative of Autism Speaks, which has by and large been known as a hate group. So against autistic individuals, because the goal has really been to rid the world of autism. And so when we do that.
Oh yeah, I remember. No, we discussed this before.
Yeah. So when we do that, we really, don't acknowledge that there is a lot of variations in how people think and see the world, and we've got to honor and respect that. So if the autistic community tells us to go red instead or to go gold, that's what my shirt says today, then that's what we're going to do. So it's my little PSA for the moment.
No, it's good. And before you even mentioned that, my mom.
Your mom was asking. So
did she? Your mom? Okay, yeah. She was asking, like, well, make sure you talk to Sara. Make sure you talk to Sara, because I know today was the first day, and I should have started with that. And I thank you for making that PSA.
That's what we do.
And no, just hearing what you said, maybe I would love to see in the future that the schools do red and
we are going to do that. So I want to stress that by no means did any of the schools go blue for any kind of malintent. That was not the issue whatsoever.
Of course.
Folks went blue because that seems to be the public understanding, is that you use blue for autism awareness. But the community really wants not awareness, but acceptance, right? Awareness means you know that I'm here. Acceptance means more, I'm happy to see you. I'm happy that you're here.
And right. And I think the mission, all the schools share and everyone shares, is that we want to provide extra help and support. We don't want to fix a problem that's not even a problem.
Right. The autism is not the problem.
Exactly.
The problem are, the anxiety, the executive functioning issues, the sensory needs that go along sometimes with autism. I'm speaking as a parent as well as a professional. So I work with these kids, these adults all day, every day, but I also am the parent of a 10-year-old autistic kid. So, he decided he was going to wear green today because that's just what he was going to do. But for the most part, we go red instead. And we are going to be doing a Go Red Day in I believe it'll be the Thursday before April vacation. Hey, this is what the community asked for. This is what we're going to do.
I wore red today. I work.
Good.
No, I
You
wore
work
red
at
today.
Target. No, that's okay. So Target's my favorite place. Love me some Target.
But no, that's great news to hear. And going into what we're going to discuss today, I think a lot of the people in the community at home are questioning why the school committee isn't, in the school department isn't making more in-depth comments into the situations that have been arising on social media lately. And I understand that there are laws in place and that prohibit that. And I just wanted to ask you if you could just elaborate on that so the community at home can understand why you can't see our officials making more in-depth comments.
So anytime an incident that happens in the school system, you will never have a school administrator, you will never have anyone that is associated with the school make a public comment about the specific incident, aside from generalities.
Of course.
We're aware of it, we're addressing it. That's really the only thing that can be said. So just like when you go to the doctor's office, you always get a notice about HIPAA, right? It's your privacy rights. You get that every single time you go. Most of the time people throw out the paper. But what that is that is a legal definition of what you can and can't share about people. The schools have a similar process. So theirs falls under FERPA. So it's the Federal Privacy Act. So when that happens, or anything happens, schools are prohibited from having any kind of discussion about what took place and what didn't take place. There's a lot of misinformation.
Public discussion. Yeah.
There is a lot of misinformation that's being spread throughout social media. And I think folks would love to correct that, but you can't, because correcting it in and of itself would be a FERPA violation. So just by acknowledging that a student is a student of Fall River Public Schools, that's protected by law. So I couldn't go here and say so-and-so is a third grade student at Spencer Borden
Of course.
Right? Because that's a violation of that law. So when that video gets posted, if the parent decides to share that information, that's up to the parent. But we can't share that information. So under no circumstances will you have anybody comment publicly on an issue like that, or talk about it with anybody outside of the immediate
of a protective environment, like an executive session. Or I understand.
So to be clear, the school committee isn't even aware of the specifics of it. We don't have children's names. We don't have any of that because that's protected information.
I was going to get into that. We're talking about policy and whatnot, how we can solve some of these issues. Could the school committee discuss these issues in the executive session, or is that?
We can't have a conversation about specific issues related to
at all.
Okay. At all.
Okay.
Because again, those are completely protected by FERPA. We don't work individually with those children, and so we wouldn't be able to do that. It honestly also prohibits, say, you have a student over at a middle school who maybe has a sibling, or there was an incident with a younger child in one of the elementary schools. Without permission from those families, you couldn't talk to the other school about it. It is particular to the people that are working directly with those students.
Okay.
So how do you create policy without being able to discuss the reason for the policy?
So you can discuss the generalities of something. So you can talk about, we've had X amount of incidents involving students in physical altercations. And this is where they're typically happening. You can do that, but you can't say Susie is a, fifth grader at Sylvia, and she got into a fight in the schoolyard with so-and-so, and this is what happened. So we have to create a policy around that, and here's the discipline that.
So you can bring in, this school has had this many disciplinary issues with this type, but you can't obviously not to talk about the individuals. But you can at least bring in the schools that are having the majority of the issues.
And we're asking for that data.
So you are good.
Yeah. So we're asking for that data.
And the question is, does the school have to give it to you?
Yes.
Okay.
So that would be a matter of information that gets reported to the state. And so technically that would be public information. Typically they wait until the end of the year because that's when the state requests that information. But we can request that.
Expedited.
And reasonably, when you have a fully functioning school committee and department, which honestly, I think we have a pretty good working relationship right now.
Yeah, I would say so.
But I'd like to think that right now we have a pretty good working relationship.
I think we discussed
I
that.
think we discussed that last
day.
meeting. I think we have school committee members. I think generally all of them care about they just want to do the best thing for the community. And but Jeff, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, you just basically is mic on? All right.
Oh, you're
good.
You're good.
I hear you.
So okay, so you basically are saying that it's not public record unless the parents are asking to bring it up, because it seems like there's a lot of misunderstood. It's like the school committee's job is to making sure that there's no issues without public record.
So if a parent wants to take to social media
Right.
and say, this happened to my kid in school, right? They have every right to do that.
No, because I've heard it on WSAR, maybe the past 2 weeks, a week or two. It's been all over the news because it's been over in social media. Because kids, I've seen it's been on record. I've seen kids just hit a student, and there's no. Is that the issue that's been bringing up?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's other issues going on with kids. They're in the Durfee lately from last year when public bathrooms being damages, fights.
Absolutely.
So it's like it's not just one thing; it's a lot of multiple issues that we're dealing with in the school. So and I think that your job is not to. There's also the school committee is not responsible for making sure that the teachers or the principals doing their jobs. It's the higher ups, right?
Right. So the school committee is responsible for the superintendent. Technically.
Correct. That's why I am still new to all this because I don't have kids.
Me too.
But everyone else has kids in it. But again, we want to make sure that people at least get more information.
Absolutely.
So
I was gonna save this question for later on, but so let's just get right into it. What are some solutions we can do? One question I would have is you like holding, and you know me, I'm always about holding people accountable. And I understand a lot of this can't be done publicly. Do you think the school committee has a role if, and I'm saying this as an if, there's administrators on the school side not upholding policy when it comes to bullying, when it comes to acting out loud?
Yeah, of course we do. We couldn't meet with that administrator, like say a principal of a school, and say, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
Right.
That's not our role. Right. But what our role is to look for that information and go back and discuss as a team, right? Because that's really what this is. That team includes the superintendent, who's been nothing but responsive.
Of course.
And say, hey, this is a concern that we're seeing from, sort of the outside, right? Because we're hearing from folks and then we're coming to the
right. Constituent, you hear from your constituent issues, and you bring them.
And I'm not, I don't think anyone's saying that it's her fault because she's new.
Oh, of course not.
And no, I'm not. I know. I'm just saying, we've dealt with a lot of different superintendents before. So it's like it's more of a responsible job would help people. It's very, I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm trying to think.
It's a complex issue.
It's a complex
right? And
issue.
So it's not easy to sit here and say like, oh, we should do this.
And it takes time too.
Right? Maybe we can do the thing that people want us to do, but maybe we can't. And it's not because people don't want to. It's because there's certain policies and procedures in place that don't allow you to, right?
I would, and I think this is all not trying to change the gears, but I think this is all coming. I think this has been an ongoing issue for maybe forever. But again, it's being taught because now people from the outside can see it because of social media, and I think
that's the main thing.
You think these being publicized on social media? I think I know your answer, but I'm going to ask you. You think it helps the cause, or you think it hurts?
The way that sometimes people put things out on social media hurts the cause. I think there's a difference between providing information and saying, hey, this thing is happening over here, right? And let's come up with some ways to resolve it, or
of course,
some suggestions versus this person is awful. This person allowed this. That doesn't help anybody.
No.
Right? Because the story that's put out there isn't always 100% accurate. And I think we know that from social media in general.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
People are never going to be, and this is true for everybody. No one's ever going to go on social media and go, I really screwed that one up. and here's all of the information about how
you
it's
think
screwed
it's
up.
like you think you know what? Oh, I'm gonna videotape this person, but yeah, I'm screwing myself because I could get in trouble.
Yeah.
So it's like because schools do have security.
Mm-hmm.
They have like police or guards that making sure that there's issues and fights in school, not outside.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you're out of school, are teachers and principals still responsible if they go on the buses?
So yeah, I mean, you would. It's a different type of responsibility, but
Because
yes.
like bus drivers and monitors, because believe me, I was picked on a lot when I was in high school. I was, all my, I've been ups and downs in my years going to Diamond. I've had my, I love my teachers, but I hated the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had my, they didn't really do much to protect me so I had to did my own thing. And then of course, I graduated and, it is what it is.
What'd you graduate with? In
2005.
No, I meant in. Like,
Oh,
what
I-
was it?
I did
Or
Autobahn.
babies.
Autobahn? Nice.
But believe me, like, and I'm not saying because we should, man up, we being
No.
but
Nope.
to me, in life, this is me. I tend to take that negative and put myself positive in making sure that if kids are going to be bullied today because of technology and social media, like do this to hit teachers and stuff like that, that's never a good thing.
No. But some of the things that you're talking about, though, I think we forget that bullying doesn't just happen in school. So I'm a lot older, Jeff, right? And I graduated in 1990. Stop that. I graduated in 99, right?
I was even
And
born.
so, and Boomer can shut up, Colin. Boomer can probably attest to this. When we were in school, if somebody wanted to continue to give you a hard time, they had to make an effort. They had to call your house.
Yep.
Likely talk to your mom or your dad or whoever that answered the phone, ask to talk to you, right? And then get you on the phone to berate you or say whatever it is that they wanted.
A
right?
teacher?
No, another kid.
Oh, no.
Right? So if you were having trouble with another kid in school, right? If you are on the receiving end of bullying at school, typically when we were kids, that kind of got left at school.
We didn't have social media where it kept dragging out and kept doing that. So where it would be either you saw him the next day at school or her at the next day at school or at the park because everybody played against each other in different sports or whatever it was. So that's how we handled things. But it was dealt with and it was done.
Yeah.
Now it's the glorification of everything is the problem. Everybody, oh, look, I'm the first one to record it.
Yep.
People that are recording it, knowing about it, should be held just as guilty.
All right, and
people that pick up their phones in the middle of it and it's like, hey, look, this is what happened.
Instead of going to a teacher,
maybe they're not as guilty, but at the end of the day,
what did they do with that information?
Correct.
That's the question.
All
Did
right.
you bring it to an adult?
all right. At this point, I want to jump right into policy because I think Boomer, you brought up a great point. You see a lot of people who just the bystanders, I think, really play a big role into, again, like with the glorification. You get a lot of social media attention.
World Star.
I think. Do you know what World Star is?
No, I
No.
remember that.
It's where they post all the stupid videos of everything that they catch that glorifies the nonsense.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well,
My
It's
husband's
not-
probably watching this going, how do you not know that, Sarah?
Yeah, because I'd rather watch things be productive.
But anyway,
I was watching Brene Brown on HBO Max because that's how much of a nerd I am. It's delightful.
I don't even know what this is.
She's my favorite social worker.
So in terms of policy, you think there's any? I know the school committee has a role when it comes to policy, and that's something. You think is there any talk about that right now of changing some written policy on hand? No?
So changing bullying policy is tricky because that comes down from the state level.
correct.
So there isn't a whole lot of wiggle room in terms of what you can do to change internal policy regarding bullying. What we can do is change some of the culture pieces that we have in our schools, right? So the fact that we have a group of kids that think that videotaping, so old I am, right? But recording an incident and then sharing that incident without sharing it with an adult who maybe can intervene or do something about it.
And some of these people are recording. You can see in the video. They're recording it, trying like not trying to help the situation. I mean, that can like if there's someone's getting bullied, recording it, that could really help like improving a case.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know what I mean? You gotta go with it
that.
properly. You have to show it to a proper adult, a teacher.
Yeah.
Of course, but again, you have a lot of people who are recording it
Just for fun.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
Like, hey, I'm with the bully. Let's fight him, hit him. It's
well, because let's face it, it's easier to align with somebody who's bullying somebody else than it is to align with the person that's being bullied. Who wants to be on the receiving end of that? Right? Nobody does. So it takes a lot of guts to stand up in a crowd like that, and say, hey, that's not okay. Or even like stand next to somebody because you're going to be next. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and kids at this age don't really have a great grasp of how do I make that decision. Right. So we do have some say in how we create policies and structures that are more supportive of kids that help. And I'm not talking about supportive in terms of coddling kids, right? There's got to be you can set boundaries and also provide support. Like you can do both at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But we've got to look at this situation and realize that we have kids that are doing the bullying are kids without fully formed frontal lobes, right? So you're dealing with kids that don't have fully formed brains yet, right? That's the reality of it. And so when they're making decisions, we can say they should know better, right? But developmentally, they don't always. So what are the skill sets that we've taught these kids along the way? Where do we have families that are modeling appropriate behavior, right? To how do we resolve conflicts? How do we handle problems? What do you do when there's somebody you don't like? I'm not going to walk around and tell my kids that if somebody's bullying you, that you should just, sit back and take it.
Of course.
Absolutely not, right? But we're going to give you some skills to be able to solve the problem, find an askable adult. And sometimes, it gets to the point where you can't do that anymore. You've exhausted those options, right? And Jeff, I think you're kind of speaking to that, where you kind of take matters into your own hands.
Yeah.
But if you set the stage, right, you're giving kids way more opportunity to problem solve as opposed to just jumping into that. So we can set policy and parameters and provide some, support around families on how to have those conversations with your kids. It's not just a matter of like, your kid did this and they're a bad kid. That's not the case at all.
Okay. You think, so we have the policy again, policies come, a lot of it from state level. You think there's any issue in general, because I hear stories about how there's kids that go down the hall swearing away and there's teachers and faculty members that do nothing. You think there's a general, maybe some like areas we can tweak in on where there's some enforcement of our policies, you think?
I'm sure there's always room to do that. And so I'm new, right? So I've got to take some time and look at them thoroughly. We've been bombarded with a lot of stuff in the last 3 months.
Yes.
The last month has been mostly budget
But of course.
Oh yeah.
We've been watching.
It's been fun. So I think that's where the work lies. And that's happening in a lot of the subcommittees, right? There's a policy subcommittee that met this week.
Yes.
I know that some of those policies were on the agenda. There was a tech subcommittee this week. This coming week, we have a special ed one.
I see that. I had a question about the policy subcommittee meeting. I didn't get to watch it. I know I'm sidetracking, but they finally, I see they want to, the sexual harassment policy, that came from the Malone situation.
I believe it was updated because of the Malone situation.
Good. And it was, I didn't watch it. I'm guessing it was a good resolution.
Yeah. I mean, people, again, I have to reiterate, I think this is a really good team of people that are looking at what the best interests of the kids are. I don't think there's anybody on that committee that's looking at a situation and going, I just want to, let's just stay quiet.
Of course. Yeah.
I think this is a really good group of people that are, passionate group of people.
Of course.
But a good group of people.
There's nothing wrong with being passionate.
No,
nothing.
Absolutely not.
But no, we talked about the policy. So you just said the school committee. You've been bombarded with a lot of information. I'm sure you received a lot of complaints from.
Believe it or not, no.
Oh. So parents aren't calling up the individual school committee members. Not as much as we'd imagine.
Not as much as people are saying. We heard about this incident. I believe there was one other incident that we had heard about, and both of those were out in off the top of my head, that's really it.
I mean, a suggestion I would give, and I see a lot of parents
reaching out to me. I don't know if they're reaching out to others.
No, right? No,
reaching
yeah.
out to me. I can't speak.
Most are probably reaching out directly to the schools, to the principals, to that kind of stuff. Because even as a parent, like that's my first thing. Like I'm not gonna just go right to the school committee. Like, what are they gonna do? Because realistically, they can't do anything.
Well, that's really what you want to do, right? So if your kid comes home and says, hey, this thing happened, your first step is go back to your kid's school, right? Talk to whoever the adult was.
The teacher, the principal, whatever. Yeah, right? you have to get the full information.
Yeah, and if that doesn't work and you can't get a resolution, you bring it up to the principal. And if you can't get a resolution there, you bring it up to the superintendent. If you can't get it there, then come to one of us. Right, because I think most of us are just going to refer you back to your child's school. Did you go there first?
Yes.
That's always my first question, right? Whenever a family comes up, it's not you're asking. Have we gotten complaints about bullying? We've had things that we've had questions about questions, not complaints.
Yes.
Questions about transportation, questions about this, questions about that. I always go back to, did you talk to your child's school?
Oh, that's a good. That's a good area to start because they do the most information. Yeah.
You're only one person.
I think I imagine a lot of people think that a school committee person is pull strings. I mean, again, it's not. You really don't have that much authority. I mean, in the long scheme of
we create policy, right? And that policy outlives every person that's on that school committee.
Yes.
And so that's why it's super important that when people are coming to the table, they're looking at it through that sort of legacy mindset. Right, because the decisions that you're making about policy right now will have an impact on kids and staff and families for years afterwards. Because you know how difficult it is to then go back and change policy. And if we have policies that are not working for us, we should change them, right?
Yep.
We should never hear, this is what we're doing because this is what we've always done. Right? That's dumb. That's some of the most dangerous language that you can have. Well, this is how it's always done.
How long have you lived here?
Hey, my whole life. Right? But it's dumb, right? We can't do that. Because
we can.
No, we cannot. We cannot. It is outright wrong. Right? Those are some of the most dangerous words in the English language to say, this is how we've always done it, so let's just do it. No.
Yeah.
No.
Jeff, anything you want to add?
Not on this specific.
Talk a lot, Jeff.
I know. I like to listen.
I know. Me too. I
Jeff
think
likes to absorb.
Exactly.
No, I think it's good that we can reach out to the community to solve some discrepancies, some like miscommunication they may have, and I think that's the most important thing. So that the community doesn't think that the school, because there's people I see on social media that there's people that think that like the school department just doesn't care.
Oh my gosh, no.
And just the other way around. And I mean, I would love to hear ideas of the public as well, of like certain ways like we can do this, so we can go out to the community and tell them, oh, we just did this so we can solve the issues. I mean, personally, and speaking as a resident, I think a lot of the conversation needs to be around these individuals who record, who are the bystanders. People need to step up. And so I remember this, Ashley, when I did go to Tansy for a little bit, and I do remember a lot of education. I think we need to start young with the education about bullying, because I do remember some of the conversations I had that I was taught in that school, and about and there was a lot of talk about bystanders. Like there was bullying back when I was in 4th grade, 5th grade.
Of course.
And a lot, and
it's a developmental process, right? It's sort of natural to that stage, but that's where the adults come in and need to be able to give kids the skills to not engage in that behavior.
Of course, yeah, of course. And so I think we need to start young on here are the consequences if you bully, why bullying is bad. I remember, and now that I'm talking about it, the more memories come back of like many videos, slideshows of like how bullying is bad, and like I think we need to make an impact on the students young.
Absolutely.
About why bullying is bad, and then when it comes, and then it won't. You're always gonna have it, of course. We're not gonna cure bullying.
Do it.
Well,
we just don't call it that.
Well, I can take. Sometimes I can take it as long as it's like breaks and stones might break my bones, but words would never hurt me. Sometimes it does hurt, but sometimes I can like, you know what? If you can't take my criticisms, but I can take yours, that's being harsh. You know, I'm an adult. I can take it, but can you take? I mean, I don't know. I know we're changing the subject. I'm bullying on kids and adults are growing up because it's a little different. Because I want to see kids be more protected while they're in school. I mean, we can't protect them while we're outside when they're outside of school because that's more their, you know.
I think we can though, because we keep talking about bullying as if it's just this like isolated thing that just happens in schools, right? But it doesn't just happen in schools. It happens outside of schools too. It happens in our after-school programs, right? Like kids go.
Well, yeah, as long as it's no,
and
no, I'm not arguing. I know I agree when it comes to after-school programs because it's involved in school. But I'm saying like parents are should be more responsible of teaching their kids on what to do and be responsible, not be this or that. Because you know sometimes they take it out of their parents' attitudes or it comes out of their homes, and it's everyone's different, and we can't read people's minds. If you need help, that's why we have to do something.
But how many parents were ever taught from the get-go, like when they were little, that this is how we treat other people, right? So it becomes this pervasive pattern of people just engaging in this kind of behavior. And then there's nothing, you know, we got to somehow come back and break that pattern, right? This is why I feel really strongly that we need more family engagement in schools. Like we have an abysmal rate of family engagement. Some schools are pretty good.
Family with
like just families.
Yeah, speak about that. Yeah, speak about that.
Participating in their kids' education.
Yes,
right?
but
like
you also have. I mean, the city's tough. You got a lot of family members who aren't allowed on school grounds.
This is true, but not every kid's family.
Not every kid's. I agree. But
and there are
that
ways
becomes
to
a role. There's ways to participate and be around it, or we've proven with COVID that you don't have to be in person for anything anymore, even though they try to make it that way.
Nope, you don't need to.
You don't have to be. You literally could do 90% of the world's jobs without it, except for like your industrial jobs. Diamond is the only school that really needs to be in school right now. So I agree.
And even they, you know, they kept the kids home for academics and sent them in for shops,
which made no sense.
It was like, you know, you can pull it off. So
what was the point? But okay. So yeah, I think there's that's a big part of it, and you got to look at the family dynamic in the city. A lot of single parents, a lot of DCF and foster care kids that no parents, you know, or foster parents that are raising other kids. So it's very hard to attend all this stuff. A lot of these parents have multiple kids. It's hard to maneuver around that and make it all work one school at a time.
But I think that's where we got to get out of the mindset of people need to show up and be physically present in order to be engaged. Because you can be a completely engaged parent and never set foot in your kid's school.
Oh, they know me when I call.
Right. But
exactly, that's you.
Like,
yeah.
But
that's not
you're right. But at the end of the day, I agree there has to be some interaction with all. There's got to be more events. There's got to be things where we can do that. And I don't want to hear it's the COVID excuse because there was no events prior to COVID for parents and kids and doing all this stuff, unless it was like a special interest thing or whatever it was. They just had, like Sylvia just had the teachers versus students basketball, you know. Cool, great.
Let's do more of that.
Why not the parents?
But not every parent can also attend that, right?
Correct, of course,
Correct.
So
they're fully
correct.
Multiple options for people to be able to engage because it can't just be
just have it as a pre-sign
at multiple time
like
zones,
that,
yes.
or, you know what I mean? There's lots of ways to do 3-on-3s or whatever, and just enough kids and enough parents to kind of get it out there. It'll eventually grow.
And more than just sports too. Sports, theater, arts,
sports are
everything.
big open. There's arts. There's all kinds of stuff.
My kids were never, well, my little one likely is a sports kid, but the other two are definitely not sports kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So they would benefit from something very different than that. You know, like do a movie night, do an anime night.
My daughter does theater. She wants nothing to do with sports. She does theater. My boys are clearly sports. My oldest daughter did sports for the most part, but she's a swimmer. So everybody's different.
Yeah.
You know?
My little one's definitely going to be a sports kid. She's already asking when she can join the teensy basketball team. I'm like, kid, you're in kindergarten, 4th grade.
Oh,
like,
that's
when you can join, sweetheart.
A question has popped up. So we talked about before the state. The state delegates a lot of this. I think they're holding this back. I've heard before that some of the states, the DESE's decisions really aren't in the best interest of Fall River. Would you agree with that?
That's a loaded question.
And I'm talking about in terms of bullying right now, not other things.
I don't know that it's not necessarily in the best interest of Fall River. I think it doesn't take into account the individual nuances of every situation. So it doesn't give you room to really let's look at the whole situation and figure out what to do next. There's a legal definition of bullying, and then there's kind of what kids come home and report, right?
Yes.
And so I think where parents get really frustrated, and I don't blame them, is when kids come home and they're reporting something, and then the school does a bullying investigation, which I gotta tell you, they do a really good job with. So I'm saying that as a clinician, right? So as a therapist, I've seen many of those reports for kids that I've worked with.
So they take these seriously. I think it's important for the community to know that.
They do a thorough job, and I'm saying that not as a school committee member, because I am the first to tell you what it is that we're doing wrong. We do inclusion horrifically. Special ed, we're not doing the best job for our kids special ed wise, but that's a whole other topic, right? We're talking about bullying. I can tell you that I've seen a lot of those reports from families, like they've shared them, and they do a really thorough job
of making reports.
Yes.
So the follow up on that, and I was thinking about this, and a lot of people in the community say enforcement, we should throw the book at some of these bullies. You think we should be doing more when it comes to punishing these bullies?
So I'm going to answer that as a therapist, and I'm going to tell you that what we know about how people learn is that they don't learn well from punishment.
Right.
At all.
I was going to agree. It depends on the situation.
That doesn't mean that we don't provide consequences and negative reinforcement and all that stuff. But I can tell you that just continuously throwing that stuff at kids, like you get a suspension, it doesn't teach changing the behavior. Right? It doesn't do anything for that. It's not how people learn. What works better is when you're setting up kids to have the skills that they need to in order to be successful. So if you're setting them up from, pre-K, and you're teaching them about how to solve problems, with the other kid in the sandbox, and you're teaching them that you don't knock the other kid over the head with a truck, right? And we teach that by showing and modeling what we do and reinforcing when they do it well, we're going to get a whole lot more from kids.
Boomer, did you want to add something to that? I know we discussed before.
No, I'm good.
Boomer disagrees with me.
I teach my kids to fight back. I teach my kids to never be the one to throw a first punch, to stand up to bullies and protect those that can't protect themselves. Right. So I think a little bit of the old way where, violence is not the answer is not a thing in my house. Sometimes violence is the answer, but it's a last resort answer. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I agree with it.
I would, in my opinion, I think some of these kids would benefit from self-defense classes and having things like, honestly, I think the schools would benefit from such a thing because they would be able to explain to these kids and get to those kids that need the discipline that they don't have it at home for whatever the reason is. Self-defense isn't about fighting. It's about being able to.
Actually, really not like.
I don't disagree with you.
To deal like self-defense classes in school. There's so much more to teaching self-defense than just fighting. There's philosophy behind it. There's discipline behind it that teaches kids that this isn't the answer. It's how to deal, how to help the next one in line, how to be a team player, like somewhat like sports do. But like you can't teach football and be like, hey, we're not going to go over there and we're not going to hurt those kids today. You're not going to teach that. You're going to teach them like, listen, that kid gets through my line, you're out. Like, so that you need to block, you need to hit hard, you need to do that. So self-defense isn't taught that way. Self-defense is taught. If all else fails, this is what you do. If you see people bullying your friend, your fellow classmate, whatever, karate, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, judo, I don't care. At the end of the day, now you're brothers, now you're family, now you're brothers and sisters. Now you're looking out for each other.
You're going
to have those one or two kids that are just immature. They're kids. They're immature. They're going to be stupid. Oh, I learned this today and whatever, and think that they're Bruce Lee. It's not going to work in their favor every time. Trust me. But at the end of the day, if the majority of the kids understand the philosophy behind it, we're still moving in the right direction.
So this spitballing an idea to
that's a different concept than just like doling out punishments every time a kid gets into a fight.
Oh, of course.
Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I think
Right.
our punishments are still very weak as well.
But there isn't any of that stuff beforehand.
Correct.
That's where I go.
That
you're not gonna learn.
that would get the problem ahead of time as opposed to after the fact. We're always reactive in the city. Everything we do.
Always.
I don't care what it is, the schools, the city, it's always reactive. Always.
I mean, just
Fly by the
giving
seat
an
of our
idea
pants.
to you, we have a lot of control with our curriculums. That's something maybe in the future we could look at in terms of curriculum for the elementary kids,
We could
self
certainly
defense.
talk about, like, I don't know that they would. I think there's a lot of legalities around that, a lot of liability around.
Oh,
that.
of course.
yeah.
But you certainly
They
can
have
bring
gym
all
class.
those
They play
components.
sports in gym
But you
class.
certainly can
you
bring
know.
in all of those components.
Yeah,
right?
it's the same
It's
concept.
worth the conversation.
Yes.
So it's just not something that's going to happen.
Oh, of course. Of course.
You're asking about punishments. Punishments historically they don't work, right? Look how many people go to jail and then go back to jail.
Yeah.
Right. So if they worked, we wouldn't have a high recidivism rate. They don't work historically. So that's not to say that kid does something and they put their hands on another person that kid doesn't deserve consequences. Of course they do.
Yes.
Well, we
Right?
also have a societal issue where you go to jail for something, you pay your debt, you come out, nobody cares that you paid your debt. Yeah, that's held over your head forever.
But that's
So
also kind of what's
that's
happening
also
in
a
our
big
schools,
problem
though.
with society in general. So it's not always that person. Sometimes they just have no choice. They have to resort to what they know because they don't have a choice.
But I would argue that's also what happens in our schools. Kid
Agreed.
gets suspended a couple of times. That kid is now known as the bad kid.
Yeah.
Right. So anytime anything happens, boom, that kid is suspended again. And then we end
Or
up
expelled.
or
And then
expelled.
they always
And-
send them to
RPA.
and this is a little off
RPA,
topic, but I wanted to bring this up. We send them to like RPA, and they like, what I mean. I feel like RPA has that bad rap of being the school with the bad.
And that's not
Well,
fair.
because that's the schools sending them only the kids they don't want to deal with. And RPA teachers, they try all they can.
I'm not
But
trying.
if
I'm
you
not
have-
trying to diss
you have that
RPA
group of kids,
at
you're
all,
screwed.
but I don't really understand. I think about this all the time. I really don't understand the philosophy behind why we even have an RPA. Not saying that, but shouldn't we
We're
have
actually
more of a
having that
focus?
conversation on Monday because I think that's gotten muddled along the way. I'm not clear anymore. So I was working as a therapist in the district, not in the district. Let me rephrase that. I never worked for the district. I was working as a therapist in the community. I was working with a wraparound program. And when RPA first opened the doors to some of the middle schoolers, we had stepped in to provide additional support to those families, right? So the kid would come in for an intake for RPA. We would have a representative from our community organization that would go in and we would help with the intake and we would help plug in, like if the family need help with food, if the family needed heating assistance, we would help provide those supports for the family,
Yes.
right? I don't know what happened along the way. I have no idea. I was kind of out of the loop with that kind of stuff because I obviously stopped working for that organization when my middle guy was little. So I'm kind of out of the loop about what that transition looked like. But I can tell you that it looks very different now than it did then. So I think we've
So RPA had a different goal. You think?
I think we've strayed from that original philosophy, and I don't know that it's a bad thing. I think it's just not clear. And so we're trying to get some of that information. I know that Kevin Aguirre had requested some data about like what we're doing with kids. Why are kids coming in? Are they coming in for credit recovery? Are they coming in because of discipline issues? We have an attendance rate of like, I think 10%, like 90% of our kids are absent.
At RPA?
Yeah,
Wow.
it's really high.
That's
We have
terrible.
some-
The loss because
What?
nobody is tracking and nobody's doing anything.
Some of the kids aren't even showing up for their original intakes. So
Nope.
kid gets referred over.
Well, I heard 10%. 10%.
About
Like
10% of the
and
kids.
and I know like for other schools, 80% is terrible.
So I said the numbers probably backwards. So when we're talking about attendance, right,
Yes.
their absentee rate is
Yeah.
about 90%.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
So about 10% of those kids are showing up
Yeah, that's
on
a problem.
Oh,
consistent basis.
Wait, yeah. Wow.
So if you have a school of say 200 kids, and we're about hovering around 200 enrolled,
At RPA? Okay.
between like probably 20 and 30 of them are showing up on the regular.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I'm embarrassed. I didn't know that. That's
So
just,
we're missing the boat. Right?
And
And,
what-
that was part of those budget meetings. We had asked that question. Like I see here that your absentee rate is close to. I think it's close to. I want to say it's like 88 or something. I'd have to look back, but it's really high.
Yep. But yet, all that funding is still going there, and we're still getting funded based on all of those children in school, but they're not in school.
How much is it?
Per student. I know it just went up. I have to look back.
Oh no, no biggie.
Wow, that's when's this meeting for the RP?
The subcommittee
Yes.
meeting is Monday.
Monday.
5:30.
Okay.
5:30 maybe. I'd have to double check.
Oh, that's
I have to
important.
double check on. I don't
No,
have
that's
stuff
okay.
in front
No,
of me.
We don't expect you to have all the answers.
I don't have.
No,
it
we're
in
not-
front of me, Darren.
We're not
want
trying to
answers.
grow.
If you had all the answers right offhand, we just have you be the host every day.
All right, I think we're just wrapping up the show. I think I also wanted to thank you, Sarah, and also Kevin for about the budget while we have it up.
Yeah.
For again, we talked about it on the show. I'm happy that we got a little bit of we made a step towards transparency with the budget, and we all sent in letters, and they listened to us. I'm happy the superintendent listened and made that change. I was very happy to see that. Just to end the show on a good note. It was good to see that.
About that, I really don't think there was an intention.
Oh, yeah.
To hide it.
I don't think.
Not. I don't. I think sometimes there are intentions to hide things in the city.
They always like
Of
to
course.
spread things around.
Let's be real.
I'd say 90% of it.
But that wasn't one of them.
I think it was an oversight.
That was we've never done that before this. Now, okay, so who's gonna do? I think it was a little bit of like, okay, well, who's gonna
Right,
do it?
and I
So
think,
I'll talk
and
about it.
I agree. I agree with that, Sarah, from the beginning. I think we all did,
Yeah.
and then like during the meeting, no one ever made. I don't think everyone intended to say that people were hiding things. We just saw something we didn't like. I think we understand that.
Mhm.
But
I think just given the history of what's gone on in the
Yes.
school committee, I think people are very sensitive. To
Yes.
that. And not in a bad way, but I think
understandable.
we've been through a lot with previous superintendents.
Yes.
And there was a lot that was not transparent. There was a
Oh,
lot
of course.
That was hidden.
Yes,
And so now, we're in a phase of rebuilding trust. So of course people are going to ask those questions.
that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank
Yeah.
you, honestly, Sarah, for coming on. I think we had a
Anytime,
great
Joe.
conversation about this. Again, I think just to capitalize, if you have any complaints about any issues in your schools, go to the teacher first
Mhm.
and make your way up the ladder. Go to the principal,
The student
superintendent.
justice counselor, anybody that's there, and then make your way up to the superintendent. And if you're struggling with that, sure, reach out to one of us and we'll make the connection for you.
Yes,
But we don't have the authority to go and fix it.
Right.
that makes sense.
I want to fix everything.
They're the only ones who actually pass the buck because they have to pass the buck.
Because we
Everybody else that passes the buck before that,
We'll make the connection.
Yes.
yeah.
All right.
The same people you just talked to.
But then like you have a school committee member using their constituent service obligation, and it's a little bit different then,
That's our
definitely.
role. I
Yeah.
always say it goes much better when you have somebody that's asking those questions along with you.
All right, everyone. Sarah, I hope you come on again. We'll talk. I think it
Come
was
and visit.
come and visit once in a while. It was a great show. Thank you, Jeff.
Now that I know where to
Thank you.
go.
Oh, now that you know where to go, I didn't tell Sarah our updated address, so we were a couple minutes late.
I would have sat outside the building going, "Hey,
Whoopsies.
where's everybody?"
Next time.
Wow.
All right, everyone. Hope
Inviting me to a
everyone
party.
has a great weekend, a great day, and we'll see everyone next week. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.